Well, you would still have the power. You would have the same. I mean, I take I think it would be great when New York State comes to have a uniform policy. Now, I believe it should be a uniform policy like the one we're passing in New York City. You have other opinions about what the uniform policy should be. So when New York passes a uniform policy, California is getting there. Now, many of their cities have had this. They've discovered it works. They're now moving to a statewide policy. There's still opposition, but they're headed in that direction. When we get to a uniform state policy, then, of course, New York City will have to implement it. And that could be exactly the one we have, or it could be ban plastic and 10-cent charge on paper like California, or it could be ban and no charge on paper, although that has the harmful consequences I said, or it could be let's do nothing at all and just keep going like it is. When we get to a uniform state policy, developed, I'll be glad to come to Albany and talk about it, but I really think we'd be better doing that once we see whether this works in New York City. And really, what's the harm if it goes into effect and it takes a little while and it is working fantastic? If it goes into effect and it's not working, then you can change it back. And I think if it's not working, there will be overwhelming sentiment to change it. And I think you'll find, as in all these other places, that actually the vast majority of people come to think it's a pretty good idea. But if people don't start bringing reusable bags, then the majority of people will think it's a bad idea. They won't like paying, and they'll come forward to us and to you, and there will be a lot of impetus to change it if it's not working. So, but we won't know. That's, I guess, all I'm asking for you today is, let's give it a chance. And I mean, I'm good to my word that if it's not working, we'll look at changing it, but you'll always have the power to overrule us in the future, especially if a statewide policy gets developed.
Thank you, Senator Savino. Senator Felder?
Yeah. First of all, it's a yes or no question answer, because we have a lot of people waiting. Is the intention to try to get rid of the use of plastic bags, or is the intention the garbage? So yes or no. Is the intention to get rid of plastic bags usage, period?
To reduce it as much as we can.
Okay. Because the Sanitation Commissioner earlier, I'm not sure if you were here, so when we talked about the mandated recycling law that exists, that has not been in place, when we asked the commissioner said, well, it's not been enforced, and it's the state's responsibility to enforce it, but no one really made an effort to have the state enforce it, right? So it seemed to me, I don't want to put words in her mouth, that she was saying that in theory, if that was working, then we would not have to have resorted to this nickel. That's my understanding. My understanding from what you're saying is somewhat different, is that no matter how successful that recycling program would have been, is that you want to charge a nickel a bag to try to get to people not to use the bags. Is that accurate?
I'm not aware of any place where a recycling policy has led to significant success and reduction. So I am skeptical that it can, for both reasons I talked about, that it's very hard to get people to bring them back, and that it's not a very good source material for future recycling. So I'm skeptical it'll work, but yes, I also think if people will start bringing reusable bags and we don't need to take the oil out of the ground and make them in the first place, that is also good.
Okay, so I just want to conclude by saying I can't do a good imitation, but I'm going to try to mimic the councilman as much as I can.
I look forward to it.
Give it a try. We have a mandated recycling law.
We've been giving that a try.
Oh, now you have to let me finish.
Sorry, I apologize.
We have a mandated recycling law that has not been enforced, that has not been really done the way it should be, because we've never seen, we don't know whether it works or not because it's never been tried, because there's a mandated recycling law that's never ever been put into effect. Give it a try. I'm the first one that would be willing to modify it if it doesn't work. That's a law that exists and existed before the law that you're proposing. And that's why I would say to you is that before you start driving people crazy and charging them money, we should do what exists. And the law is that they're supposed to be mandating recycling bins or whatever else, and it just doesn't exist. So the way it works is not when a law is proposed and it's not implemented, you say, okay, it's not implemented, let's make a new law. If that were the case, we'd be in a lot of trouble. So I would just say to you is that we've never, ever given that a fair chance. We've never given the law a fair chance because no one cared to. So I would have said the law that exists first should be implemented and tested before Councilman Lander's new law and new proposal. Let's see how it works. I say, I agree. Let's see how the current law works because it's never been implemented.
Well, it's been in place a long time, and if the state hasn't made it be followed, that's not on the city. I would say a few things. I wish I had video from my office because you're exactly where I started 4 years ago when I started looking at this issue. And my staff will attest to this. I was upset that I couldn't find the bin.
Yeah.
And I said, you know what? I don't think anyone's following this law.
Right.
Let's do some research and see about getting it followed. But that led me to go down this path of
Well,
where are the bags going, even when they are...
What did you do? Did you write the state and tell them to enforce the law?
What I first did was try to figure out what happened with the bags even when they were brought back.
Okay.
And that was sort of, I
Right,
found out
but-
that a lot of them were still
But
winding
did
up in
you ever
landfills anyway.
ask for enforcement of the current law?
I don't believe, the current law has failed, and I don't believe it's a
So
matter
that
of
means you
implementation.
never, it's not a sin, by the way.
No, I don't believe, I
but
believe
you
this law has
never-
failed because
but I
it's
would
not
just-
well designed and it won't work.
That means,
And there's no place else in the country where a law like that is working.
So that means that it's not an issue, the issue is not about trying. The issue is that you didn't like the law the way it exists, or people in general didn't like it. They never tried it, and you decided you want to try something else that you're convinced that will work.
We
which-
researched what we thought would be the best policy based on all of the
I
places around the
understand, but for
country,
you
and we
to-
passed a law, and now we're asking you to let us
but
implement
for
it.
Councilman, for you to say, well, let's try it, and if
Us.
it doesn't work, I'm saying to you that you did not.
But I'm making a commitment that I would change ours. Yours, the state law has failed, and no one has made any effort to change it.
The state law has failed
Yes.
because
I don't know why, but no
Oh,
one has made
okay.
any effort to fix it.
whose responsibility is it to enforce the state law?
I don't know the answer.
You don't know the answer?
I don't know.
Oh,
I
all
don't
right.
know the answer of who
Well,
it is.
we'll
whose
take the next.
responsibility
We'll
it is.
make the next panel, and I want to thank you very much for coming.
And I appreciate it, and I appreciate the respectful dialogue, even when we disagree. So
Okay,
thank you for the
next
Thank you,
opportunity.
panel.
Councilmember.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next panel is Abigail Turner, Tom Lucania, and Brad Gersman.
Oh, I'm very happy. Feel better. Chubbs, how many do you have on this one? No, I thought. We're ready as soon as you get comfortable. And as I said before, please identify yourself. And also, if you can please decide amongst yourself who's going to go first.
I would say ladies first,
Okay.
and then me.
What do you say about that?
Hey, good morning, or actually, I guess it's afternoon now. Senator Felder and members of the Senate Committee on Cities.
You're not going to read. You're not going to read your
I'm not.
testimony.
I'm just
Yeah, you just wanted to make sure your name. Okay.
got the name right.
Please, thank
Okay.
you. Thank you.
My name is Abigail Turner. I'm a manager of government affairs for the American Forest and Paper Association. Very much appreciate the opportunity to speak to you today on behalf of AFNPA and the Renewable Bank Council on this important issue. First, to explain why I am here, AFNPA is the National Trade Association for the forest products industry.
If you can, hold on. If you can please take any conversations outside, I'd appreciate it. Yes, I'm sorry.
Sorry. I am soft-spoken, so I'll try to stay close to the mic. For the forest products industry, we represent pulp, paper, packaging, tissue, and wood products manufacturers, along with forest landowners. Our companies make products essential for everyday life, from renewable and recyclable resources that sustain the environment. In New York, our industry operates 284 facilities and employs more than 30,500 individuals with an annual payroll of over $1.5 billion. Did want to look for that part because I want to make sure I got that right.
Thank you.
The estimated state and local taxes paid by the forest products industry totals $179 million annually. This actually includes a recycling facility on Staten Island owned by Pratt Industries. The Renewable Bag Council is comprised of manufacturers and converters of renewable, recyclable, and compostable craft paper used for checkout bags at grocery and retail outlets throughout New York and across the U.S. All of that to say, AF&PA and the RBC are pleased to support this bill. We support preempting local jurisdictions from enacting taxes and bans on carry-out merchandise bags because it prevents the patchwork of local ordinances that penalize paper and paper-based packaging, a commodity that is highly recycled, recyclable, compostable, and renewable. My first point is one that many others have already said and said it much better than I can. Additional taxes and fees burden hardworking citizens, increasing the cost of basic necessities for all and disproportionately impacting those who earn lower incomes. Consumers need a free packaging option to protect their purchases from damage and contamination. I'll focus on paper instead. Responding to consumer demands, many retailers have already switched to paper. Not only are paper bags generally made from recycled paper, but they're highly recycled themselves. There are fixture and community recycling programs throughout the state and the rest of the country. Paper is the only bag option that's commonly accepted for recycling at curbside in New York, where 97% of citizens have access to curbside and 94% have access to drop-off recycling. Many of you may have even used paper bags to sort and transport your other recyclables, so it's also facilitating recycling. From a raw material perspective, paper bags are made from a renewable resource, managed forests, and today the U.S. has 20% more trees than it did the first Earth Day celebration more than 40 years ago, and 1/3 of the U.S. is forested. That's 751 million acres. Privately owned forests supply 91% of the wood harvested in the U.S. I also want to note, and this is my big one, our industry achieves a consistently high recovery rate. We just actually announced a couple weeks ago our latest recovery numbers. For 2015, 66.8% of all paper consumed in the U.S. was recovered for recycling. The recovery rate has met or exceeded 63% for the last 6 years. Paper is the most recycled material in the U.S. today. According to the U.S. EPA, more paper by weight is recovered for recycling from municipal solid waste streams than glass, plastic, and aluminum combined. So the paper and the paper-based packaging industry has set and met goals that we have established on a voluntary basis. We have a suite of goals to achieve by 2020. One of them is to reach 70% recovery by 2020, and we are coming up close with 66.8%. And we have consistently publicly reported on our performance. The industry remains open to working with others in both public and private sectors to maximize our recovery. And to sum up, a 5-cent tax on paper bags wrongfully penalizes consumers for choosing our product, a commodity that is recyclable, compostable, made of recycled materials, and is reusable. Thank you for your time and the opportunity to be here.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. My name is Brad Gerstmann. I represent NIAGS, the New York Association of Grocery Stores, and I will try not to repeat anything that anyone has said previous to my testimony or what I expect will be brought out in other people testifying. I'm not an expert on cleanliness, although I do know there are reports that say that E. coli can be, contaminate these reusable bags. I'm not an expert on, what extra taxation means to people of different origins and different levels of wealth. But what we do is we represent the independent grocery stores here in New York City. And the independent grocery stores, despite some of the conversation, it seems like it's gone back and forth, but we don't want we don't want the bag tax. We've been opposed to it. We've testified in front of the city council. I've lobbied the members. I've lobbied Brad Landers personally. We do not want this. And the reason is, some people may argue or may think it's common sense. We make more money, right? We get 5 cents per bag. This is a great thing. We could pay the labor, things that I've heard. We don't want this at all. There are reasons why we don't want it. First of all, these grocery stores that we represent are so highly regulated and fined for everything under the sun. If you don't label every product, you don't have a sign in them, someone move the food to the wrong side. Everything gets, we get fined for everything. So now we just invited more opportunity for people to come in and fine our members. In addition, I agree with Senator Savino. For sure, people will leave the city to go shopping. Okay, we know that. If they have access to go somewhere else, we've looked at it in cigarettes. And again, Senator Savino said it better than I can. But I reiterate exactly what the senator mentioned, is that people will leave. And then there are also the concern that there are rogue grocery stores out there that some will charge more, but you know what I fear? I fear the ones will charge less or none. So they will invite more customers into them, and then my clients who abide by the law are charging them the fees, and they're going to find, come on, this is New York, there's a deal everywhere. They're going to find the right grocer that won't charge them, and that will make all the sense in the world for people to go and congregate and shop there. And then finally, there's the last thing I'm going to say is, it was very interesting when they talked about all the regulations that go into this, meaning all the requirements on small business. You have all these stores that are going to need, now that I understand, signs, register reprogramming, and various levels of additional oversight to make this work at the grocery store level. We don't represent the national grocery stores. We have nothing against them. We don't represent some of the smallest bodegas. They have their own association. We have the independent ones that you see, the larger ones that everyone cries when they go out of business. Well, what we're doing here is driving supermarkets out of business by forcing them to tax their own customers. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Senator Felder, Senator Prasad, Senator Savino. My name is Tom Lucania. I'm here on behalf of Bronx Borough President Ruben Diaz Jr. to testify in favor of the Senate bill and the Assembly bill. Borough President is extremely opposed to this bill. He does believe that this is a bag tax, and even more so that it is a regressive tax. And he was very concerned when the City Council originally passed this bill and had sent a letter to the Speaker at that time opposing the bill. The cost of living in New York City continues to rise, and the additional burden that is being placed on our citizens is unacceptable, and there are a couple of reasons why. First, low and middle income people already are overly taxed, and then while the bill does allow both SNAP and WIC beneficiaries to not pay this nickel, there are many more working class people that are in similar situations that are also negatively affected. Secondly, while the bill does take into account those who are receiving SNAP and WIC benefits, what happens to those who choose to pay cash? Do they then have to show the WIC card in order to have the 5 cents removed from their bill? That is concern. Mm-hmm. And similarly, the bill does not exclude green carts, where we're encouraging people to eat healthy, and the green carts would also be subject to providing that 5 cent tax as well. Additionally, we are concerned that it doesn't exclude seniors who are the most vulnerable on fixed incomes and struggle to pay their bills right now. Also, the tax is being given back to the store owners as opposed to a place where you can set up an environmental fund or some entity that would benefit the public. The borough president obviously is very concerned about the environment and does all he can to support those initiatives that will benefit the environment, not only in the Bronx, and we have our own environmental issues in the Bronx. And there's a goal that everybody shares that we want to decrease the number of plastic bags that are used, but there are better ways to do it. One is to increase our recycling procedures, to try to include the recycling of plastic bags more in our recycling programs and to promote it even more. Secondly, to provide rebates, as has been mentioned earlier, to those who choose to return those bags, as they do, as the senator said, with the bottle bill, and to provide the ability for those products that are recycled to create new jobs in the recycling industry. And then lastly, the city has, the administration has talked often about how income inequality continues to grow, and this law clearly is not the answer. This is a punitive and, we have to find more creative and less punitive ways to solve this issue, and we are willing to work with you on those opportunities. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Dice?
Thank you, Brad.
Thank you very much. It's very interesting how 2 out of 3 state senators overlap my district. So,
First, I just want to mention that the rule is that you can't read your testimony.
well, okay, but I have my testimony here. I will try.
You're allowed to look at it.
Okay,
You're allowed to
all
sniff
right.
it if you want,
Could I-
but you can't read it.
Could I read the thank you to you?
No.
No,
Just
okay.
if you can give us what's on your mind.
Okay,
without
great.
reading it.
All right. So first, I want
Thank
to
you.
thank State Senator Simcha Felder for introducing S7336 and Assemblyman Michael Cusick, who sponsored A9904 in the State Assembly. Now, as a member of the New York City Council, I voted against this 5-cent tax, reflecting the interest of many of my constituents, and obviously, I could actually say almost all of my constituents. This fee has the strongest impact on seniors who are on fixed income, large families, and those who are struggling to make ends meet, and who are who are on low income and above that threshold to be eligible for SNAP. Now, this 5 cents tax, I don't call it a tax. I don't consider it something that puts money back into the supermarkets, back into the stores, a tax. I call it a financial burden on the citizens of New York City. Now, it is important to protect and care for our environment. I had rain barrel giveaways throughout my district, and I have a pretty high score in environmental issues, in legislation, the City Council, and this is not the way to protect our environment. It is definitely important to protect and care for our environment, but a robust educational campaign to encourage and increase usage of reusable bags would have been a great step for the city to take, instead of imposing this tax, this 5 cents or more, to millions of New Yorkers. Now, carrying around reusable bags isn't always easy. For example, people with disabilities. Now, may I read a letter, email that I received from one of my constituents, a person with a disability, and this is what she wrote. As a disabled working person, I will be disproportionately affected by this tax. Because of spinal instabilities, I can only lift 10 pounds at a time. Therefore, I asked the grocer to bag my groceries in smaller batches so I can lift and carry them. This tax discriminates against people like me with disabilities. Now, in many apartment buildings, people use these shopping bags to throw down these chutes. And in my district specifically, I could tell you I have many apartment buildings, high-rise buildings, and just most recently, it was in the paper, one of the buildings in my district that was really rat infested. Now, this will only leave people from throwing down loose trash down the chutes. They won't have those bags. What are they going to use? The big garbage bags? Are those any better? So people are basically going to go to the chutes and throw down because they're not going to want to pay 5 cents or more for a shopping bag. Now, without plastic bags readily available, many dog walkers, I'm afraid, will leave the dog poop right in the street without putting it in a bag. Now, we have almost zero enforcement on this currently in the city of New York. No matter how much you call your local precincts or enforcement or sanitation, there's very limited enforcement. So why not first take care of everything else, and then we could talk about this bag issue. Now, many people with large families will no longer be able to carry and afford the groceries I know for myself, my wife goes into the supermarket and she shops, she puts everything in the wagon, and then it gets delivered to my house in boxes. Currently, the store owners do not charge for boxes or delivery. So it comes to my house and gets delivered. Now that people will have to pay for shopping bags, they're going to go to the supermarkets and ask for these deliveries to be in boxes. Now, what is that going to cause? That's going to cause more delivery vans, more delivery trucks. It's going to be, you're going to have vans and trucks idling outside, pollution, the carbon monoxide, and double parking, horn honking. Now, is that good for our environment? Absolutely not. So none of it, I have to basically say that it's important for supermarkets to use high-quality bags. You go into certain supermarkets or pharmaceutical stores, and you get these flimsy bags that tear before you even walk out. So why not make better bags? I know in my closet, in my kitchen, and all my kids know, that's where we keep the bags. We use them, we walk out with them, we bring them back, and it's constantly going back and forth. These bags are reused. The ones you may see in the tree are those flimsy bags that people don't care about, people don't want. People don't even want to bag them when they go into the stores. Our responsibility is to educate people and encourage people to protect our environment by being responsible and discerning and to use plastic bags, not to be more environmental friendly. This is a city that never sleeps. I mean, that is the slogan. This is a city that never sleeps, a city where many are supporting themselves and their family with more than one job. People have 2 jobs, and I know some that have 3 jobs. A city with many large families, a city with many people that are shouldering so many responsibilities and burdens. We need to make their lives easier instead of nickeling and diming them. So I support this piece of legislation, and I hope we could, this moves forward in the Assembly, and the Governor signs on it. And thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to testify today.
I don't have to repeat my spiel. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. I'm John Weber. I'm with the Surfrider Foundation. If you're not familiar, where's your colleagues? All right. We're a coastal environmental group. Our mission is the protection and enjoyment of the world's oceans, waves, and beaches, and we do that through a powerful activist network. We have a 10-year-old program called Rise Above Plastics, and one of the things that program does is encourage bag legislation, either fees, bans, whatever, and we've been doing that for about 10 years, and in short, we're doing that because it works, and I will go through some of those details. But it's amazing to me that in 2016, educated people don't know the difference between a tax and a fee. I really find this unbelievable. You know, if you want to go fishing for trout in a clean Adirondack stream, we don't talk about the trout tax. Okay? If you want to drive your off-road vehicles in Robert Moses State Park, we don't talk about the off-road vehicle tax. If you want to spend the day in, say, Long Beach, New York, on the beach, we don't talk about the Long Beach beach tax. Of course, because these things are fees. And the reason that they're fees is because if you don't do that thing, if you don't fish for trout or drive off-road or whatever, you don't pay it. And it's the exact same thing here. If you don't get a bag from the store, you don't have to pay for it. It's just nothing could be simpler. So I kind of find it unbelievable. And, you know, these are fees. Fees are designed to prevent overuse of something that might be a limited resource. You know, if the state's paying to stock those trout streams, you know, and they're finding that they don't have enough money for that, well, they're probably going to raise the fee. And if they find that there's too many people driving off road on Robert Moses State Park, they're probably going to raise the fee. So what we're finding is that, you know, hundreds of jurisdictions across the country have found that there's too many bags littering their streets and storm drains and neighborhoods and trees, so they're putting a fee on them, and that's working. It's working really, really well. So, you know, one thing I will take just correct something that the commissioner said early on was that I think she used the number 130 jurisdictions. It's more like 200 in the country have done it, as well as dozens of countries, as Councilman Lander mentioned. So there's literally like half the world's population is living with some kind of bag ban or fee or legislation. We got China, we got Bangladesh, we've got most of the European Union, et cetera, probably 20 million people just in this country. So we support these fees because they work. Surfrider Foundation was one of the groups that helped pass this Washington, D.C. fee. It's one of the closest. There's plenty of different types of these fees or bans or combinations. D.C. is one of the closest to what has happened here in New York City because it's 5 cents. The difference, as been said, the government in D.C. keeps part of that fee and the merchant only keeps part of that. We certainly looked at that and we decided it's better to keep have the merchant keep the fee for a variety of reasons. And what I want you to recognize here is that this is what New York City passed is a result of, we had the benefit of all these other jurisdictions going first and learning from their mistakes or learning what worked or didn't work and what would work best in New York City. So what passed in New York City is really a compromise. We did listen to the other side. Okay, we heard the merchants' arguments that paper bags cost a heck of a lot more. Duly noted. Let's let the merchant keep the fee. We heard the arguments that letting the government keep the fee, well, government always doesn't do the best thing with money, or they can't be trusted, or then it's just more work to get the accountability that we need. So we heard those arguments. So again, we let the merchant keep the fee. And then we heard other arguments from all sorts of communities. And as you know, this was originally a 10-cent fee. It's down to 5 cents. So there's been a ton of work and learning and research and compromise just to get to where we are. So I would hope that the committee here would recognize that. So to get to the specifics, in D.C. it's working really well. Most reliable data says that the bag use has gone down 50, 60, 70%. And there's a variety there because if you ask retailers, how many fewer bags are they giving out and therefore spending money on to give out, retailers have said 50%. Okay, they asked 600 D.C. residents, how many fewer bags are you using? And it's not zero; it hasn't gone 100%. They say about 60% fewer bags if you ask the residents. And the litter surveys that have been done by organizations before and after the bag fee, so they've got before and after data. It's really good. They have seen that in the district in D.C. on the Anacostia River, litter has been reduced by 72%. Now, the litter study itself on the river is also interesting because outside of D.C., they don't have such a restriction. They don't have the bag fee, so we've got a jurisdiction, sort of a control where nothing's happened. And in those, they've seen absolutely 0% reduction in plastic bags found in these litter cleanups. And then you move down the river a little bit further to Montgomery County in Maryland, which also put a fee on bags, and the reductions that they've seen there in those trash traps are 65%. So it's clearly working any way you slice it, if you're a retailer or you're a resident, and or you're if you're just interested in less trash. So those are really, really strong statistics. In LA County, they put, and California's a little different, and again, there's been an evolution. The most popular thing these days in California is ban plastic, put a 10-cent fee on paper bags. And they did that in LA County. The city has their own law, but LA County did it. They had estimated before this, some of their big retail stores, how they define large retail stores, were using 2.2 million bags a year. That's one store, 2.2 million bags. After this, the number was down 90%, in some places 95%, less than 200,000 per large store. So clearly working there. So there's some additional reasons that cities, in particular, should be concerned, should want some sort of legislation that reduces the amount of bags out there. First and foremost, bags clog storm drains. Serious flooding problems have resulted from plastic bags clogging storm drains. They don't break up, or the way they just hold other debris and water. The mayor of Portland, Oregon, and officials in Laredo, Texas, are online. These are linked. You all have my testimony. I'll give you an electronic version so you can get these links, saying that how much money their cities have spent unclogging storm drains from plastic bags. That should be a serious concern for cities and anybody worried about the people's pocketbooks and taxes. The other thing is that cities spend millions and millions of dollars on litter abatement. Okay, that's not going to go away tomorrow, but there's going to be a lot less of it. Again, savings to taxpayers. These are all things that should concern cities, and which is another reason that Surfrider Foundation thinks these are good ideas. I think that there's a huge opportunity here, and anybody interested in education, and I know Senator Felder, you chair the subcommittee on education for New York City, so to me this is an opportunity to teach young people, okay, what is the real deal with plastic? And I'm going to go off script maybe from some environmentalists here and say that the real deal with plastic is that this is unbelievable stuff. This is fantastic stuff. It will last forever. We have literally created a product that will last forever. It doesn't break down. It doesn't turn into something else. It will last forever. So why shouldn't we teach our children that the best use for this substance is not something that's going to be used for 5 minutes or 5 seconds? Okay, single use, nothing should be made with single-use plastic or designed for single use if it's made out of plastic. The stuff will last forever. It's got really good uses, you know. My car is probably half as heavy as it would be, you know, it's half plastic, you know, gets better gas mileage because of plastic. You go on and on about the fantastic uses of plastic. Single use is not anything that plastic should be used for. So there were so many different comments from the podium here. I just want to try and, it's a long list here, I just want to try and address some of them. I'm just going to wing it here. Somebody asked why, you know, why paper? Why is paper part of this? Again, it goes back to, we're not making a choice between paper and plastic because that can get you into legal trouble. It's single use versus reusable, okay? So you apply it equally to all single use and paper or plastic, that's good. Again, I maintain it's a fee, it's not a tax. You know what it really is? It's a fee on forgetfulness, okay? It's a fee on being forgetful. And as has been testified to, you're only going to forget a couple of times. I have a special solution for you, Senator Savino. When you join Surfrider Foundation, you get a reusable plastic bag, a reusable bag, but it's got a little carabiner on it. It's got a little clippy thing, so you clip it to yourself or your purse or your bicycle or your steering wheel, so you never forget it. You will never leave them in the trunk of your car again. See me afterwards. I will make you a member of the Surfrider Foundation. We will get you one of those. The bottle bill was brought up. Okay. Bottle bill, you know, my question is, well, why did it take 20 years to update it and make it cover water and juice drinks and things like that? The answer is the beverage industry. And it had a really good stranglehold on a couple of folks in the New York Senate. So, you know, we know why sometimes good environmental legislation doesn't happen or takes a long time. If New York is interested in going towards single stream recycling, like a lot of communities in New Jersey have, these thin single-use plastic bags, they gum up the machinery of a single-stream recycling facility, meaning they got to stop the machinery, someone's got to climb in there, they got to remove the bags, and time is money when you're a manufacturer or, you know, a single-stream recycler. That costs you money. It's really bad. All the arguments about sanitariness of reusable bags are just, I'll use some surfer lingo here and say they're bogus. So I'm not even going to address them. They're just unbelievably bogus. Senator Golden, unfortunately, is not here. He said, I thought he said that there's manufacturers of plastic bags in New York City. I would like him to name them because, as far as I know, there are none in New York City. Maybe in New York State. There's none in New York City. There are no bag jobs in New York City. The other gentleman mentioned a guy from the Bronx, Joe Venuto, and he's really worried about this, and it's going to cost him money and everything. I want his address because I will personally send him a reusable bag or 2 or 5 or whatever he needs because it's just that simple. All you have to do is bring the bag, and I left mine with my stuff back there, but there's plenty. I walked in this room, and somebody gave me a reusable bag. I mean, I can't go to anything without getting a reusable bag. Yeah, sure thing. Absolutely. I just, you know, there's so many other things said that, you know, people said the process wasn't fair. Somebody said that there wasn't a good process. They actually testified at the city council hearing. So that's kind of interesting to me. There's solid waste advisory groups. They have meetings. They're open to the public. People could go to them. This was in the press. They could have seen it on TV. We have a democracy. They could write their council people. And I just want to say one final thing. A lot of talks about recycling bags. Bags don't get, plastic bags, film bags, don't get truly recycled, okay? A glass bottle turns into a new glass bottle, that's recycling. Same thing with aluminum. The best that you can do with film plastic is downcycle it, meaning turn it into something else. It gets turned into a piece of Trex lumber or something like that, and then that's not recyclable. So we downsize it, we give it another life, but it's not true recycling. That's one of the real problems. So I really appreciate your time. Thank you for listening, and on for my colleagues.